Marvel Comics, the year is 1998. We're counting down the top 10 most valuable comics from that year. Let's dive into our countdown. Ranking 10th of the year is Marvel Collectible Classics X-Men number 3. This is the Chromium Wraparound Cover Edition, reprinting Uncanny X-Men 137. This series of Marvel Collectible Classics came out only during this year, and they all have $10 cover prices, which meant that sales were quite low on all of these. And of course, they're also technically reprint issues with the chromium gimmick, which was now kind of past its peak. And comic sales were way down in 1998 compared to the early 90s, making all of these quite hard to find now. This issue has 76 copies on the census, 70 of them super high grade, 9.6 or higher. Heritage Auctions has never sold a copy of number 3. This ranks as 10th most valuable Marvel comic of the year, and it ranks 89th most valuable Marvel comic book of the 1990s. In the Overstreet price guide, we can see the book is stalled in all conditions, currently sitting at $32 for a raw 9.2 copy in the Overstreet annual price guide. On the census, believe it or not, there is a copy graded at 10, also a 9.9, and there are 57 9.8s of this book. Number 9, well, continues a pattern we're going to start to see. Marvel Collectible Classics X-Men number 2, Chromium Wraparound Cover. This issue reprints Uncanny X-Men 141 and 142. $10 cover price, ranks 9th of the year, 88th of the decade. 97 copies graded, and 95 of them are high grade. Heritage has sold 0 copies of this book. These are quite tough to find. There are some on eBay. You might want to scoop them up. In the Overstreet price guide, prices stalled in all grades. $32 for high grade. There are 75 9.8s and 20 9.6s of this one. In 8th place, we have Marvel Collectible Classics Avengers number 1. This reprints Avengers Volume 3, number 1. Ranks 8th of the year, 87th of the decade, 102 copies graded with 100 super high grade. Heritage has sold none of these. We've got all the gang on the cover, even Scarlet Witch. Overstreet price guide, this one stalled at $32. There are 5 10.0s of this book and 6 9.9s. Incredible. Next on our countdown, in 7th place, we have Amazing Spider-Man 430. Now, this is just starting to become a key issue now. It's the first appearance of Cosmic Carnage. We also have a Silver Surfer storyline in this and the next issue. Print run estimated at only 66,000 copies. Spider-Man was not selling very well in the late 90s. This book ranks 7th of the year, 64th of the decade. There are 718 copies on the census with 547 high-grade copies. Heritage has sold 7 of these. Nice action cover. This book has been slowly moving up every year in higher grades and has pretty well doubled in just the last 3 years. On the census, there are 357 9.8s and 190 9.6s. In 6th place, we have Marvel Collectible Classics X-Men number 1. This one reprints X-Men 1 and 2. And yes, there's a 9.9 of this book. And it's slowly growing on the census. There are now 104 copies graded with 95 high grade. Heritage has sold 1 copy of this chromium cover. In the Overstreet price guide, low grade has not been moving at all, but higher grades, it's sneaking up. Now a $45 book. There's 1 9.9 and 76 9.8s. That brings us next to number 5 on our list. And this is Avengers number 1. It is the Dynamic Forces limited edition signed by George Perez. Now, all I know is the Overstreet price guide says it's a sunburst cover, but there is actually a regular sunburst cover. So I'm not sure if the cover is the same or if there's anything different about the cover at all. So I'm showing the regular sunburst cover. So to have the Dynamic Forces edition, it's limited to 1,500, and it is signed by George Perez. Now, this book ranks 5th of the year and 49th of the decade. So you need to verify if you have the correct Sunburst cover or not. And this one's a tough one. The CGC census has no copies listed. And Heritage has sold 0. In the Overstreet price guide, this book is stalled in all grades, sitting at $50 for a near mint raw copy. In 4th place, we have Amazing Spider-Man 431. It's the second appearance of Cosmic Carnage and his first cover. Great action cover here. And Silver Surfer appears again in this issue. Print run estimated at only 66,000. Ranks 4th of the year, 43rd of the decade. There are 667 copies graded with 436 high grade. Heritage has sold 10 copies. In the Overstreet price guide, slow but steady growth in high grades. Now a $55 book, but you can see in the last decade alone, this book has gone up 13 times in price, because until it got a bit of buzz, it really was just a cover price book. There are 253 9.8s and 183 9.6s. Ranking number 3 of the year. This has been a big key book for a long time. What If 105, the first appearance of May Parker, Spider-Girl, who is Peter Parker's daughter. We've got Sienkiewicz art in this issue. Print run estimated at a crazy low 29,000 copies, and it has a white background cover. Here we can see the direct edition and the newsstand barcode edition. It ranks 3rd of the year and 32nd of the decade. There are over 1,000 copies graded, including 634 high grade. Heritage has sold 10 of these. In the Overstreet price guide, this book is moving up. In the last decade, it has doubled in lowest grade, and in high grade has done the same. Now a $75 book. There are 339 9.8s and 295 9.6s on the census. That brings us to number 2 of the year. We have Marvel Collectible Classics, Spider-Man number 2, chromium wraparound cover by Todd McFarlane, reprinting Spider-Man number 1 from 1990. And there are 5 copies graded at 10.0 on the CGC census of this book. $10 cover price, chromium wraparound cover, ranks number 2 of the year and 9th of the entire decade. There are 396 copies now graded, 372 high grade. Heritage has sold only 2 of these. So if you like this classic Spider-Man number 1 cover, this is truly the rare one. In the Overstreet price guide, definitely moving up. You can see in the last 5 years alone, the book has pretty well doubled in low grades. And high grade, it's now a $250 book. There are 5 10s and 5 9.9s, 310 9.8s. And that brings us up to the number 1 valuable book of the year, Marvel Collectible Classics Spider-Man number 1, chromium wraparound by Todd McFarlane. This reprints Amazing Spider-Man 300, the first appearance of Venom, and also on the cover. This is the number 2 most valuable Marvel comic of the 1990s, which is a reprint of the most valuable Marvel comic of the 1980s. There are 13 copies graded 9.9 by CGC. This ranks number 1 of the year, number 2 of the decade. There are now 576 copies graded, 497 high grade. Heritage has sold 7 of these. In the Overstreet price guide, you see this book has been going crazy. In low grade, the book has gone up 7 times in only the last 5 years. And in high grade, the book has almost tripled. It's now a $650 copy. You can find CGC 9.8s on eBay for over $2,000. On the census, there are 13 9.9s and 359 9.8s. Now let's compare the top 10 books on the CGC census. Well, the book with the most copies graded by far is What If 105 with over 1,000 copies graded. After that, we have Spider-Man 430 with 718. We have Spider-Man 431 with 667. And then we get into the Marvel Collectible Classic Spider-Man 1 and 2, which have a decent number. On the low end of the spectrum, it's actually the XMen chromium reprints that are the lowest on the census, with X-Men 3 being the lowest at 76. Keep in mind, some of these chromium books have been able to be kept in high grade easily. So we have 3 books on our list today that actually have a 10.0, and on our list, we have 5 books that actually have 9.9s on this list. And of course, we have lots of 9.8s of all of them. The most common one being SpiderMan 430 has 357. And the SpiderMan #1 Chromium has 359. The top 10 Marvel books of 1998. The series continues every week, year by year. So please subscribe to this channel. Thanks for watching.